Right, so until the 1950s, this entire area was covered with gravestones, believe it or not, and it had a big railing going around it. The graves are still underneath. We're actually standing on hundreds of dead people here, but they took the gravestones away. Now, over here you've got St Edmund, which we've shown you in a video the other week. That was put there to celebrate East Suffolk and West Suffolk joining together and just becoming Suffolk. That was in 1974. So you've got the wolf here in the centre of the churchyard, but you know about another wolf. You were telling me about a wolf with a scarf or something?
Oh, that's just on the roundabout.
It's on the roundabout, isn't it?
The boys from the rugby club always put scarves around him, keep him warm.
They do. Do you know why they do that?
No.
It's a tradition.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, there is a roundabout, and the local rugby club always put a scarf on before match day.
Yeah.
And it's a tradition. They've done it for years.
Might be footballers, I don't know.
It says Bury Rugby Football Club, so I don't know
be.
which it is.
Yeah.
But they put that there to scare the opponents, because all opponents have to drive past that roundabout to get to the ground. So it's like warning them that they're coming to their ground.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But
good.
yeah, they're all over town, of these wolves. It's a really nice. I love the old story about Edmund and the wolf. Love it. So we're still in the great churchyard here at Bury St Edmunds, and behind me you've got the Martyrs Memorial. Now this was erected in 1903, and it's to remember 17 people, the 17 people from Suffolk who were killed by Bloody Mary, Queen Mary. This is from between 1553 and 1558. I'll tell you a bit more about the story. Now, oddly enough, none of these people actually came from Bury St Edmunds, yet there is this memorial to them. They all came from Suffolk, but not from Bury St Edmunds. So Queen Mary, she was the daughter of King Henry VIII, and although he spent most of his life trying to get rid of Catholics by burning down all the churches and getting... You know, we talk about the Reformation. I've talked about it so many times when they went into all the churches and took all the religious artefacts out and stuff. When she came along, his daughter, she wanted to bring She wanted to bring Catholics back. So she went around burning people, literally burning people at the stake, just for being Protestant. If she went up to somebody and says, we need you to be a Catholic now, and they refused, they would be burnt at the stake. Now this happened mainly just to people in the south of England, but over her reign, 227 men and 56 women were burnt at the stake simply for being Protestants. And these are 17 of the people, all men from Suffolk. So now I'm going to go into verse. You're not expecting this bit. Are you ready? Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. It's about Bloody Mary, it's about what she did here. Well, there's actually 3 different versions of what the nursery rhyme means, but one of the versions is to do with this. So the line, Mary, Mary, quite contrary, is said to mean about her unsuccessful attempts to convert people to Catholicism. How does your garden grow? That's the next line. That is said to be because she didn't have any children. She couldn't get any children. So how is her empire going to grow? How is she going to pass on what she's got to one of her kids if she hasn't got any? And silver bells and cockle shells is said to be, the silver bells is the way she dressed elegantly, and cockle shells, apparently that was one of her favourite foods. And your last line, pretty maids all in a row, is a row of Protestant girls who she burnt at the stake for being Protestants. That's just one theory of what that nursery rhyme means, but it's all tied in with these poor guys who died for the same reason. Sadly, one of the martyrs on there was called, John Cook?
Yeah.
John Cook. And you didn't even know he died, did you? That's her sister's boyfriend. Well, that's his name. I don't know if it's the same John Cook. It can't be, can it? No, it won't be him. Just a different one. Right, whilst we're on to the way to the next part, which is just here, I just want to tell you a little fact, a bike fact. James Moore, he was born here in 1849, and he was the first ever winner of a bike race worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Born in Bury St Edmunds. It was from Paris to Rouen. I don't know where Rouen is, but a distance of 81 miles, and he won it. And he lived most of his life in France, but he was born here. The first ever bike ride. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bike race. We're still in the great churchyard. Can't get out of here, there's too many stories to tell you about the churchyard. Behind me here, you have got the great churchyard charnel Crypt. Now this was built in 1301 by an abbot from the abbey just over there, because, as you can see all around, is gravestones. It's always been a churchyard for a long time. And they'd be digging graves, you know, just as they do nowadays, but when they were digging, they'd come across some bones. And they're thinking, oh, we're getting a lot of bones here. A lot of people have already been buried here. So how many hundreds of years before then people started being buried here? I don't know. But this abbot thought, let's show them a bit of respect. All these bones we find from now on, we're going to build this building for them, this charnel. Is it a charnel? This charnel crypt. And we'll put the bones in there. One of its more recent uses, believe it or not, this will have been probably the 1800s. It was a blacksmith's. Yep, used as a blacksmith's at one point. It's been used as a few different premises, but that's the only one I've got in my notes. I don't know what else it was. So along the walls, inside and out, we can't get in today, it's locked, which I'm not too happy about. I wish I'd have got in touch with whoever and asked them to open it so we could go inside and see the plaques in there. But there's all these plaques to different people. Now, a couple of them are quite famous, quite big names. For example, you've got Henry Cocton. Now, Henry Cocton was an author. He did a few, funny books, quite funny books for Victorian times. His most famous work being Valentine Vox the Ventriloquist in 1840. Have you read that?
No.
Oh, you have to read it. It's a brilliant read. He wrote that, and in its first year sold 400,000 copies, and apparently rivalled Charles Dickens. He was one of the best authors of them, the mid to late 1800s. There's a plaque about him there. We've got another one here, and this one's for you Americans. You're going to love this one. This is Bartholomew Gosnold. Bartholomew Gosnold, what a fantastic name. Bartholomew, believe it or not, was the founder, or one of the founders, of Jamestown, I don't know how you pronounce it, Jamestown in America. He was from here. He died in America, in Jamestown, and he was buried there, but no one knew where he was buried. And I was doing my research, I thought, well, why is there a plaque about him here? And apparently it's because in this churchyard are some of his family. I believe his mum and dad are buried in here. But he was buried in America, and apparently, recently, they reckon they have found his grave, dug him up, this will be in the archaeologists, dug him up, taken his skeleton and put him into a museum. So if you want to see him, you know, no flesh, just bones, he's in a museum in Jamestown. But here's a plaque to him. This is what I prefer to see, a plaque rather than a bone. Interesting man. So ironically, okay, we've just stopped for a drink and we've come back. Ironically, there's a tour guide giving a little tour to some people behind us, and they're actually doing a talk about what I want to talk about, which is a woman called Sarah Lloyd. So we're just staying out of the way. We'll let her give her version to the tourists, and then I'll go over there and just tell it completely differently. But whilst we're here, one thing I just want to point out is this is, what did we call it? The Chancery? Chancel? No. This building behind us, which they used to put the bones in, apparently, once it got full, they would take the bones out and burn them on the bonfire. On the bonfire, and that's where the word bonfire comes from.
That's interesting.
Not literally from Bury St Edmunds,
but from
the word bonfire comes from bonfire.
That's amazing.
So the last story outside the channel, Crypt, is about a lady called Sarah Lloyd. I say a lady, it was a girl. Now Sarah didn't even know her own age. She couldn't read, she couldn't write, she didn't know how old she was. She thought she was between 16 and 20 years old. Turned out when she died, well, I can tell you the truth, she was 18 when she died. Exactly, 18, it was her birthday. No one can prove me wrong, because nobody knows exactly how old she was. So Sarah Lloyd, she was a servant, she worked for a mistress of, a posh lady. And she got a boyfriend and her a bit of a ruffian. And he talked her into it. He says, look, let's just steal some stuff from your mistress. And she didn't want to do it, but she loved him. So she agreed to it, did Sarah. She says, okay, let's do this. And they stole a load of trinkets and money and watches and things like that. She walked out with these. She probably had one of them pinnies on. You know how they had in Victorian times and stuff, like pinnies. She probably put it in the pockets in the front. She'll have had like 2 pouches in the front of a pinny. She'll have put her watches and trinkets and money in there. Anyway, she goes out and her boyfriend's waiting in the bushes and he says, I think we should cover his tracks here, let's burn the house down. Now, the mistress, she was actually in bed upstairs, and they set fire to the house, which was really out of order. But the fact is, they got caught. They got caught and they questioned both of them. And Sarah said, yeah, I did it, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done it. She was really good to me, was my employer. She was really good and I shouldn't have done it, I shouldn't have taken them stuff, and I certainly shouldn't have tried to burn the house down. By the way, the house didn't burn down. They started it in a barn next to the house, hoping it would spread to the house, but it didn't. They managed to control it and just stayed in the barn. So the lady of the house lived. So she confessed to everything. Now her boyfriend, he didn't. The police turned up, they took him in for questioning and says, right, what about stealing all these things and trying to burn the house down? He says, don't know what you're talking about. No idea, I was nowhere near there. So because Sarah admitted to the crime, it went to court and they says, right, you're obviously guilty, you've admitted it, we're going to hang you, which they did. Her boyfriend, he said he didn't do it, so they had no proof. They had no proof that he did it, so he got away with it. He walked away and it was probably all his idea in the first place. So you might think, poor Sarah, I would say very naive Sarah, but Sarah is buried here in this churchyard and there's actually a plaque up there about her, and it was like a warning to warn people in that day and age, you can't get away with things like that. And she really took the worst punishment in the world, well, one of the worst punishments in the world, which was death. The other one being living with Mazzy.